Great. Welcome to week 11 of the Power 10 Sports Talk. We are joined with myself, Andrew Gibb.
Braxton.
I'm John.
I'm Erin.
I'm Brady.
And before we start, remember to follow us on YouTube at Power 10 Sports, follow us on Twitch on Power 10 Sports, and follow us on YouTube at Power 10 Sports. Follow us on Twitch whenever you want to see us go live. Follow us on YouTube if you can't make it for the live show but still want to see us come up on your weekend plans, and follow us on Twitter to know when we go live, when the video goes up, and any hot takes that we might have throughout the week. Let's get her started. Several games got canceled this week. A lot of major games, really, with Ohio State not being in, Alabama being out, Clemson not playing this week, luckily. But a lot of big games getting canceled due to COVID, and I think that might actually have some effect on the rankings now with, hey, you're not playing games. We can't give you a rank if you're not playing. Anyone have any comments?
Yeah, that's 4 top 25 games this week that are canceled. Ohio State and Alabama are the two big ones in the top 4 in the playoff hunt. But
Yeah,
Alabama at least has a full schedule. 1 or 2 games might not hurt them as much. With Ohio State, they're playing 7 games now.
Yeah.
I don't see how you make it to the playoffs with 7 games. I wouldn't put them in. Even if they run the table, just an 11-game schedule is harder than 7 games. Easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the strength of
Yeah, I
schedule
agree.
that Ohio State has left, there's nothing there. Michigan hasn't really put up a fight at all to make that game look impressive.
No,
Honestly, the most impressive game left is Indiana.
and that's a surprise. I think Indiana should be Big Ten's representative to the college football playoff if they went out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think Ohio State, that weak schedule does not help, but you still have a Big Ten championship where that could help your case. But I think that all depends on, you need Wisconsin to win and win big to help your case, because the East isn't looking real hot. So you need
Neither
that
is the
hard West
West,
game
really.
to end. Yeah.
I would say Minnesota hasn't looked very good. I think they lost last night too.
Oh, yeah,
They
they
lost
got blown
big
out
night.
last
Yeah,
night.
they got blown out
35
by
seconds.
Honestly, Wisconsin and Ohio State are the
Iowa.
only 2 teams that are, I think, putting up a solid fight, other than Indiana, who's like a sleeper pick this year.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the effect it could have on teams like Cal and Utah and UCLA, where you could have maybe had a case, but games are getting canceled, and that's going to hurt you. And
Yeah,
real
they
quick,
only started with the 6-game season, so
yeah.
Going into the season, I knew there was no way for a Pac-12 team to advance.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very hard for them to make it. Maybe they can make a case if they're doing really well, but it's going to be very tough for them. Cal's coach, Herm Edwards, getting COVID. That's one.
Arizona State.
Yeah, you got to be really worried for Herm Edwards that he pulls through with this and he's fine. I don't think we have to be super worried about a lot of coaches getting it because they are fairly young. Herm Edwards is one that I might be going. He's kind of one of those high risk people. You kind of might want to be concerned about his health. But yeah, OSU, Maryland, Georgia, Mizzou, Coastal Carolina not playing this week, A&M being out, Auburn being out,
Alabama and LSU.
Yeah, and this definitely is going to have a big impact on how you can say maybe Notre Dame takes that one spot. Hey, they're the only team that played this week. They technically are the only team that got a win. Maybe they take that one spot if they get a win this week. I think that's all going to depend. Next week, we also will get to see some of the bowl rankings come out, who's going to be in the playoffs.
After next week, they release the official college football playoff rankings Tuesday after the games.
Yep. So
hopping back though, like with bowl games and stuff, the fact that Coastal Carolina is not playing this week, I think is really going to hurt their chances of getting a New Year's Six bowl if, they stay undefeated.
Yeah.
Because everybody's rooting for the small schools at this point to make a play, but if they're not playing their full schedule, that's definitely going to hurt them in the long run, which sucks.
I agree.
Yeah, and you can't fault Coastal Carolina on this one. It was a
No, they've
breakout
done
with Troy. Yeah.
Everything they've done well. They've went out on the field. They've won the games they're supposed to in convincing fashion. It's Cincinnati has almost an insurmountable lead on them, and BYU as a Heisman contender.
Yeah, and it is one that, those New Year's Six games, sometimes those affiliate games where the second best team in the Big Ten is getting the second best team in the SEC, even though Coastal Carolina, Cincinnati could be the best game we could get in a bowl game. You don't know. Yeah. It's these affiliate games could end up hurting Coastal Carolina and Cincinnati and not giving them a New Year's Six. It could maybe help. It's definitely not going to help them for sure.
No matter how good Cincinnati, BYU, and Coastal Carolina, they could all three go undefeated.
Yeah. If without one does not get spot, in the, you're not getting it. It's going to be
without
tough
a playoff spot. There is one team that is making a New Year's Six bowl,
and I think the fact that Notre Dame
and we're going to see that versus a third best Big 12 team or third best Big 10 team.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that Notre Dame won last week is really hurting Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina and those BYU, the smaller schools, because they're going to use the argument that Trevor Lawrence didn't play and that Notre Dame and Clemson both deserve to be in the playoff just to get that matchup again, which really stinks because other than that, you're going to have potentially one Big Ten team and then one SEC team.
But we've seen that in previous years where one school has two spots. It doesn't happen super often, but you have one Big 12, one Big 10, and two SEC. Last year, I do think worked out fairly well with it was a Big 12 and ACC, a Big 10 and an SEC. But there have been years where we get two SEC teams in. I don't think we'll ever see two Big 10 teams in because you aren't in a great division, and that Big 10 championship helps you get that playoff spot, and that loss knocks you out.
Yeah.
But I do think maybe we need to think about restructuring the playoffs, maybe restructuring how some bowl games work where just because
eliminating tie-ins.
Yeah. I can understand some tie-ins and maybe have the second best play the second best, but don't make it a New Year's Six if they're both two lost teams. I think we should be seeing 5 play 8, 6 play 7, and
because with
have high ranking matchups, and maybe try and avoid them being the same conference where we've already seen the game happen before. And I get why we have affiliates, but we're starting to see teams that aren't your Power 5 come up in the ranks and they're proven, hey, we're just as good as everyone else. So give us a good game.
With those 2 or 3 bowl games that aren't New Year's Six or are New Year's Six, but aren't playoffs, you just get the teams that are disappointed they didn't make the playoff. And then you get the excuses. You get the UCFs that beat Auburn and say, oh, well, their hearts weren't in it.
The other issue with that
buy that for a second, but
yeah, sorry, Sowko, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I was just going to say the other issue with that is like with those teams that are just disappointed they didn't make the college football playoffs, a lot of those guys that are going to get drafted don't play in those big marquee New Year's Six games. So if you get the smaller schools, the schools like Coastal Carolina, Cincinnati, BYU in those games, those players want to prove that they can hang with the big boys just to up their draft stock. So it might be a more competitive game that way too. And besides, everybody loves an underdog. Everybody's going to go and watch and see if Cincinnati can really hang with these SEC Big 10 teams. So you're going to get viewership that way too. So I don't know why they keep pushing it back and pushing it off.
Yeah. And
we've seen this before. I was watching the Cincinnati game last night and the announcer was like, oh, who really is the better of the group of 5 independents? They should have Cincinnati and BYU play in a bowl. No. What does that do for Cincinnati as a program?
Yeah.
A win over BYU?
And if BYU has a win over Cincinnati, I think you need to be putting...
That's not a Power 5 school. That doesn't put you on the map. That doesn't get you anywhere as a program. And they've done this before. They don't want the Power 5s losing to 2 separate schools. They don't want... They like the narrative of the top tier and the bottom tier, first tier and second tier. But they did this with TCU and Boise State. Instead of letting them go out for the national championship and whatever, Fiesta Bowl, they're like, oh, just have them play each other.
Yeah.
Almost saying they don't deserve a shot at Alabama and Oklahoma.
Yeah. And it almost feeds into the system where Alabama gets the best games. And even if they're not in the playoffs, they get that New Year's Six and they get more money and they can use that money for more recruiting. these schools like Cincinnati, BYU, and Coastal Carolina that are doing just as well get relegated to these mid-range bowl games that don't get them a ton of money that they can't use on recruiting and making a better program. And that's an issue, that you're not getting better programs out of this. You're essentially feeding in to keep
creates
conferences.
a circle.
Yeah,
It's a
Coastal
cycle.
Carolina can go 11-0, 10-0 right now because they miss a game.
Yeah.
And if they don't make a New Year's Six bowl, their best option as a bowl game is the Carmella Bowl versus the MAC.
Yeah.
They could go undefeated,
Woo-hoo.
a top 10 school, and they're rewarded with the best MAC team or the best Conference USA team in the Myrtle Beach Bowl.
Yeah, and that doesn't help. I know, John, you had sent me some of the bowl predictions, and it had Coastal Carolina up against Buffalo, and I'm like, yeah, that makes Buffalo look better, but you're hurting Coastal Carolina here. You're killing them.
How are you rewarding that season?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You get to play a better team in the MAC, and it's like, man, that isn't a whole lot. They're playing on a super short season, and really nobody in the MAC has shown any sign of dominance at this point. Kent's putting up decent numbers, but again, they're not playing a whole lot of hard teams. OU barely gets a win against Akron. There's no clear-cut number one team. Like, we've had years where Western Michigan was ranked, years where OU was ranked.
You might have that Coastal Carolina team go up against a 3-loss MAC winner.
Yeah, the winner of the MAC may not be the best. It's just they're the best in the MAC, and they're not any good. All right. So now that I think we've gotten all this done, let's get into the picks. There's not a whole lot this week. Start off the new games. Miami at Virginia Tech. I think this is going to be a barn burner. Both defenses are allowing almost 400 yards a game, and both teams are getting about 440 yards on offense. I do think Miami wins this game on the road and shouldn't be the underdog this week. I think it was 2.5 points. Give me the Hurricanes win this one. Taking the U.
Yep, I'm going with the U also.
All right.
Yep, I'm also going with the U. Virginia Tech lost a close one against Liberty. I thought they were going to pull it out, and congrats to Liberty for edging out the win. But I think Miami's a whole different beast.
Yeah.
You have a
I
Heisman
agree.
candidate, De'Aaron King, and he's going to go off.
No, I agree. I'm taking Miami too. Sorry, I keep cutting you off, John. But no, I agree. Miami definitely has this one. They take a lot of pride in their defense, and I know their defense isn't like top shelf like they normally are. They call themselves the DBU, but it's really not there this season. So I think this could be a good game for them to really get together as a defense and make some stops.
Yeah, I got Miami. I think the chances of them winning is 38%, but it should be way higher. But the Derek King almost throwing for 2,000 yards already is just incredible. So I think that they can pull out the win this week.
Yeah. It is odd that they are an underdog. It might be that they're on a road game, but yeah, Miami being ranked 9 and being an underdog against Virginia Tech, maybe they're saying Virginia Tech hangs in these games, and this could be the week that they finally get that win over a ranked team. We don't know. We'll have to just wait and see. Next up, we got Indiana and Michigan State. Both teams shut down that overhyped Michigan team. I think this is going to be a pass-heavy game, and I think the Hoosiers are going to find a way to stay in the top 10 this week. Indiana gets the win on the road. And I think this is a game where you're going, well, we both beat that Michigan team that's supposed to be super good. You're both coming in. We're good. We beat Michigan. Yeah, Michigan State has that loss to Rutgers that probably hangs over their head, but you're both going, we beat ranked Michigan. They were supposed to be one of the top teams in the Big Ten, and they're nothing. So I think they both come in with that chip on their shoulder. I think Indiana has a better pass game in this, and they get the win. Go Hoosiers.
Yeah, I think the only thing that will stop Indiana from potentially getting an easy win would be maybe they're excited that they're this good and they're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
They're looking forward. They want your Ohio State. You know, they want to beat those bigger teams. So I think maybe they might get ahead of themselves, but I do think they'll win, by a touchdown or so. I think they'll be able to pull it off in the end, just being a better team.
I don't think of Indiana as a team that falls for a trap game. But I do think that they haven't been there before. They haven't been ranked top 10 since, the 90s. And maybe that lack of experience. And I still think they win. I don't think that lack of experience shows against Michigan State, but against Ohio State, it may. I think next week is obviously the more interesting game here.
Yeah.
But this could be a battle of top 10 teams going into next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for Indiana winning, That just makes when Ohio State beats them, speak it into existence. When Ohio State beats them, it's just going to make it look more impressive. But I do understand where Braxton's coming from because they've never been at this level before. Or at least they haven't in a long time. None of the players on this team have.
The players in this organization haven't been at this level. The school has, but the organization at this point hasn't.
Right. So, it could be really easy for them to be like, oh, we got this one. Don't even worry about it. We need to focus on Ohio State. They're a beast. They're a bigger team, and they're worth more hype. So I do think it is a trap game potential. But again, I'm rooting for Indiana all day, every day.
All right.
Yeah, I'm with all you guys. I got Indiana. I think that Michigan State loss to Rutgers really hurts. And they just don't look as great as they used to be. They don't look as dominant.
Yeah, that Michigan State 5-6 years ago that we saw was dominant, and now they're like a shell of their former selves.
Yeah.
All right, so we got Indiana across the board on this one. Next up, we got Middle Tennessee at Marshall. Marshall has pretty much steamrolled everybody they've played, and I think being home this week is going to keep that tradition going. I think they cover the spread, which I think around 24 points. Yeah. I think they cover that against a Middle Tennessee. Marshall's going to get this win. I think they get to be top 15 after this win this week. Taking Marshall winning this one.
Yeah, like we said, we have a pretty good they have a pretty good defense, and their offense is also clicking on all cylinders. So I don't think Middle Tennessee State's going to be any competition for them at all.
Yeah, this is a Marshall team that's getting very overlooked. You have your group of 5 contenders. You have Cincinnati, BYU, and you have Coastal Carolina, which is a lower ranked team, but they're getting the attention because it's Coastal Carolina. Yeah, they're getting big wins. It's Coastal Carolina. No one has heard of a Chanticleer before this season. And you have Marshall that feels very overlooked right now, saying, hey, we're right here. We're 16. Why aren't we getting this? Why is Coastal Carolina getting more New Year's Six talk than us?
Yeah.
We're right there. And I think they continue to have statement wins.
I think the fact that they are overlooked this year, Marshall is, I think it's just giving them a chip on their shoulder just to play better and better each week, because they really are. They're playing better each week, and this Middle Tennessee team isn't really where they were last year or the year before.
Or like
so it's not
middling Tennessee.
Oh, yes. Sorry. But anyway, I think that the fact that Marshall is being overlooked just gives them more drive and more energy to keep getting better. So I'm picking Marshall as well, but I'm excited to see where they are at the end of the year.
All right, so
Yeah,
Marshall
I got
across
Marshall.
the board.
I got Marshall. I've never heard of Mid Tennessee, and Marshall just looks pretty good this year. And they have a decent running game. I think they'll run all over Mid Tennessee's defense.
All right, so Marshall across the board. Next up, we got West Carolina at Liberty. This is West Carolina's first game, and it's not going to be an easy one. Liberty proved me wrong last week. They proved an independent, besides Notre Dame, can be good. I think that this week's going to be an easy game for this, and I think that right now they're on coast mode until they get that Coastal Carolina game at the end of the season. I think Liberty gets this one with ease. I think that the rest of their schedule looks fairly easy. Anything can happen, though. But I think at this point, Liberty's kind of going, this is all just practice games for Coastal Carolina. We're just kind of tuning up, getting everything, checking all the boxes. I think Liberty gets this one big, and there's going to be no issues the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I agree. They're, I think, 36.5-point favorites in this one. So clearly they're the better team. So I don't think it's going to be any issue for them going against Western Carolina, especially being their first game.
Yeah,
it's a 36.5.
36. I have 35.5 here. Either way, I think they cover. I think Western Carolina, this is their first game. And I think this is just a crazy season where Liberty is going into their 8th game. And Western Carolina, it has yet to play one.
Yeah.
So think Liberty, they proved me wrong last week, and this is their reward. This is a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking Liberty too. I think the fact that they've had so many competitive games so far this season is going to make this one a cakewalk for them, especially because if it's your first game in the season, you got to shake off a little bit of rust. It's probably going to be a little bit of a slower start. It might be a little bit of a sloppier game with a lot of flags. So I think Liberty's going to take advantage of that easy and walk away with it.
Yeah, I got Liberty also. They showed what they could do last week, and I think that they'll come out the same way this week and put Western Carolina's record at 0-1.
All right. So Liberty across the board. I don't think we've all picked the same this week.
We've all picked the same.
Yeah. All right. This one, we got South Alabama at Louisiana. Raging Cajuns had me week 1 against that Iowa State win.
Re-entering the top 25.
They're re-entering the top 25. I'm kind of hyped for it. That's a pretty come on, the Raging Cajuns. I don't even know what the mascot looks like. It's just a solid name.
Is this the most group of 5 teams we've had ranked?
This probably is
in a long time.
Yeah, and I think it is
not only this, most group 5 teams in the top 20, top 15.
Yeah. And yeah, you are seeing that. I think it is with Pac-12 starting so late. It's tough to give them a spot over Coast Carolina that has 5 or 6 wins. It's becoming this game where you're playing catch up if you're the Pac-12, if you're the
Big Ten.
Even if you're the Big Ten, yeah, you're playing catch up. And it is interesting to see so many Group 5 teams make it. I think that Louisiana, yeah, they had their ups and downs, but at the end of the day, they beat a ranked Iowa State, and I think South Alabama is not going to be any issue. I think they're hyped to get back in the top 25, and the Raging Cajuns get the win this week.
Well, after all, they are the best team in Louisiana right now. So, I think they're going to keep it rolling since they're freshly in the top 25, and they're going to move up a couple spots this week.
Yeah, I think Louisiana's very excited to enter the top 25 after just stumbling for a game. I said week 2, they win, but they win ugly, and they're going to continue to find ways to win. And I think they get the win over South Alabama.
Yeah, I'm going with the Raging Cajuns as well. Their rush offense this year has looked really well. Especially, I looked up the stats for this one. And surprisingly, they're averaging almost double rushing yards a game. So I think this one's going to be run right down through their throats. So I'm taking the Cajuns.
All right.
I'm going to go with the Louisiana because the Raging Cajun sounds like an awesome name. Also, I think that they'll just blow South Alabama out of the water. South Alabama also got killed by the Chandeliers last week. Sadly, I don't get to see them play this week.
All right, another one across the board. Next up, we got Notre Dame at Boston College. Notre Dame, hey, end of the day, they got the win last week over Clemson. Trevor Lawrence may not have been there, but they still got the win. That was the game I said, if they get the win, I think they win out the ACC, and they did it. I'm a man of my word. I think that Notre Dame wins out the ACC. They're probably going to have a pretty easy way the rest of the road. And I think Fighting Irish get this one big. Go Irish.
Now, they're only favored by 11.5. So do you think that's a little low?
I think it might be a little low after. Yeah, they did go overtime against Clemson, but Clemson was the number 1 team, and you beat them. So I think giving them 11 against Boston College is almost a spit in the face.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So, I mean, they're still getting that aspect of disrespect that they always get. And I mean, they are notorious for losing one game every year. So I understand that. But I think this year they've proven to be pretty solid. So I don't think they'll have any problems today. And I think they'll cover by a good amount.
Yeah.
Don't count out this Boston College team. I think Boston College, as this team and as a program, are very easy to play spoilers. The last time Notre Dame went out on the road and beat at home and beat a number 1 team, that was 93 against Florida State. They lost the next week to Boston College. I think this is a rivalry that has been dormant for a while because Notre Dame has been out of the ACC, and Boston College will come to play. I don't think it will get the win, but I think 11 is very fair.
Sowko, you took my point. I was going to say that Notre Dame doesn't know how to act when they win. They don't. So it wouldn't surprise me if they come out sluggish this week, and it's a lot more competitive than people think. Ian Book looked great last week. Like, honestly, Notre Dame looked really good. So I really do think they might be a contender. And I think they're going to win out the ACC. I think they're going to win this game too. But I think it's going to be a lot scrappier. Boston College is tough. Like, they aren't a rollover team. They're not a team that everyone talks about every year, but they don't roll over. They don't get scared of the Clemsons or the Notre Dames. Like, they don't get scared of the bigger teams they play. They actually put up a fight. So, again, I agree. 11, actually, I think is pretty fair.
All right.
Yeah, I got Notre Dame on this. I think it'll be a close game because they both showed Clemson how they play and both kind of exploited how Trevor Lawrence is not there. So I think it'll be a close game, but I got Notre Dame on this one.
All right. Next up, we got USC at Arizona. USC kept it a little too close for comfort last week, and I think for you to even be like, hey, we're a contender for even a New Year's Six game, you need the blowout this week. And I think the Pac-12 was playing behind, and I think everyone's on notice of that. You going, we're playing from behind, we have to get big wins. I think that's making defenses step up, and I think it's making offenses try to overperform. Like we said, USC is a 14.5-point favorite. The quarterback looked all right. Arizona hasn't played yet, so there's not a whole lot we can say about them. I do think USC gets the win because they have more experience. It's only a game, but they do have more experience already. They've gotten to work out some of their kinks. Arizona's still doing that. So I'm going to take the Trojans winning this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with USC also just because I don't really know a whole lot about Arizona this year. And even the first game jitters again. So I think USC is going to pull this one off.
I'm going USC as well. Against Arizona State, they did not look at their top shape, but I agree they've had a week to iron out these kinks, and Arizona's coming in without any game time experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Sowko again. Last week I watched the game and Arizona State impressed me way more than USC did. Shout out to Arizona State's running back. He's from Ohio. He went to Hoban and he ran through USC in the first half. The only reason, in my opinion, they lost was because they played stall ball in the second half, but I digress. So I don't know anything about Arizona this year. Obviously, they haven't played yet, and USC showed that they have a lot of fight and that they don't back down even whenever they are running behind. So I'm gonna go with the Trojans.
Yeah, I got USC because USC always seems to come out tough on defense. They usually stop whenever they can, and I think that they'll stop Arizona this week.
All right. We got 5 more games. Next up, we got Northwestern at Purdue. Yeah, Northwestern is ranked 23, and I'm surprised by that, but I think that ends this week. They don't have a great quarterback situation. Throwing 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and your first game in isn't a great look. And I think that you got to have a lockdown quarterback is one spot you got to have for sure locked down, ready to go if you think that you're going to be a ranked team. And I don't think they have that. I think that the Boilermakers get the upset this week and a close game, but Purdue's going to win it at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a fair point. They don't really have a great quarterback. Even last year, they didn't really have a good quarterback, and he was considered good for them. So I think I just don't – I'm not sold on Purdue, though. Obviously Purdue blew out Ohio State a couple years ago, but other than that, they don't really get those, big wins every year. So I think a top 20 team coming in is too much for them, and I think Northwestern's going to take it.
I think Northwestern as well. Purdue, they haven't played I'm not saying that Iowa is the top of the Big Ten, but they had an impressive win over Minnesota last night, and Northwestern found a way to beat them. Purdue has played Illinois. So I think Northwestern takes this. I think we have still yet to see either team against a top-tier opponent. But for now, I think Northwestern has the better strength of schedule.
Yeah.
I think Northwestern's kind of starting to build a program, and they've done pretty well in the Big Ten West over the past 5 years. They've made it to the Big Ten championship more than once. So I think they're a team that we need to watch for. I agree. I think Northwestern's going to win this game. They're really gritty. I like their coaching staff. They always get a bunch of social media attention because it's cold and they're always, rocking the tight tees. But I think they're a really tough team. They're a gritty team, and they don't care that they're not the Big Ten team. They're here to play every game, and they don't care who their opponent is. They just want to show that they're the best team out there. So I'm going with Northwestern.
Yeah, I got Northwestern. They seem to be playing some pretty good football this year. But Purdue just allows way too many yards on defense. So I think that they'll exploit that and they'll get some yards all over them. And I think Northwestern will get the big win.
All right, we finally had somebody pick away from the grain.
Yep.
Sadly, it's me, so hopefully I'm not wrong. But next up, we got Arkansas at Florida. Trask is on fire. He is a top candidate for the Heisman this year. And I think using those extra games he has over other SEC opponents is really going to help them out for their case to be in the college football playoffs and possibly take Alabama's spot. I don't think it's be the one spot, but they might take Alabama's spot in the playoffs. I think that the Gators get a big win in Gainesville this week.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they have any trouble. Arkansas is 3-3. Obviously the SEC schedule is tough, so 3-3 on an SEC team might not tell the whole story, but I think Florida comes in with no problem and gets the win.
Yeah. I think this is an underrated Arkansas. 3-3 is definitely not indicative of how good of a team they are. And I'm proud of Arkansas for breaking away from the Chad Morris years, the laughingstock of college football. But I think Florida's too big of an opponent for them to handle right now. I think they are well into rebuilding their program, though.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with Florida. I think the fact that Trevor Lawrence hasn't played these last few weeks just makes Trask look better and better at being the Heisman candidate and the Heisman winner. And he knows he needs to have that star game to beat out people like Justin Fields. So I think he's going to try against an underrated but really tough Arkansas team to have a big game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with all you guys. I got Florida. Florida just seems to show up whenever they do. And they just beat a number 5 ranked or Georgia team. So I think they'll come out and kill Arkansas.
All right, we're back to all being on the same page. All right, next up we got Oregon at Washington State. I think Oregon got the big win last week, and they want that top 10 spot bad. I think they're going, we're Power 5. We deserve it over Group of 5. I may not agree with that thought, but I think that's how they're seeing it. I think that they go, we want it bad. And I think they get a high yardage offense again this week, get the win, go Ducks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Oregon's going to take it. I don't think it's going to be much of a problem for them. It might be close at first, first couple of games, always rough, like we pointed out earlier. But I think at the end of the day, Oregon's the better team and has the better skill on their team.
I also think Oregon takes this. It's a funny stat that 98% of bets have been placed on Oregon. So people are very much counting out Washington State. It's interesting with the new coach this year. They got the win last week. But this is their first real test going up against Oregon with a new coach and a new system.
Yeah, I think this one's actually going to be kind of close because you got a new coach, a new system on one side, and you have a new QB and a new offense on the other side. So I think that's actually going to play into a lot. I think there may be mistakes here and there, maybe a little sloppy, but in the end, I think Oregon has a better, well-rounded class and group of guys, and I think they're going to pull out the win.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it a little bit short because we're running out of time, but I got Oregon on this one. They just seem to show up. So I got Oregon.
All right. Next up, we got SMU at Tulsa. SMU's playing their 9th game of the season. They got to be tuned in, keyed up, ready to go. I think we'll see a high score on the SMU side and a decent Tulsa team's not going to be able to keep up with them. I'm taking SMU winning this one.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it short also and just say SMU.
Yeah, SMU, I think, takes this. Their offense is clicking, the exception of the Cincinnati game. They're finding ways to win from behind or either blowing them out. They're the better team, but don't count out Tulsa. Although they had a poor showing against ECU, they still can play spoiler. First week against Oklahoma State, they hung in there and had multiple opportunities to win. This should be a 4-0 Tulsa team.
Yeah.
I'm going to say pony up SMU as well.
Best team in Texas.
Yeah, I got SMU.
All right. So it looks like we only got one game so far where we've not all picked the same thing. All right. And
Love
last
that.
game, I think that we all will pick the same on this. We got Wisconsin at Michigan. Michigan needs the win this week. I think they need it if you are Harborough and you want to keep your job. If you are Michigan, want to be considered a serious team. But I don't think they have it. I think Wisconsin has a great dynamic quarterback, and they're going to get the win and shut down Michigan for the year. Go Badgers.
As bad as Michigan has been, I think that they need a win bad enough that today could be the day. So my one upset this week is going to be Michigan over the Badgers.
Over the Badgers?
They've been off a couple weeks, so you never know.
Yeah.
This is a Wisconsin team overcoming COVID, and their quarterback, Graham Mertz, is still under protocol. He could return. And I think that is the X factor. If he returns, I give it to Wisconsin. If he does not, I'm taking Michigan.
All right.
So as of
I
now,
don't pick
he is still
Michigan
out.
ever.
I'm saying Michigan.
Oh, I was gonna say I don't ever pick Michigan, so I'm going with Wisconsin. It's that simple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't. I've only picked Michigan once and they lost, so I'm picking Wisconsin because Michigan sucks and they look terrible this year, and they lost to a team that lost to the Rutgers. So.
Preach,
All right.
Brady, preach.
Yeah, all right. So that's
Okay.
all the games we got for this week. Thank you for joining in. Remember to come join us next week at 10:45. Goodbye.